Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Fluctus Channel. At sea, the difference between a routine approach and a violent takeover can shrink to just a few minutes. That is why the U.S. Marines train to board, overpower, and secure a suspect vessel with speed and accuracy that feels almost surgical. A ship at sea is a moving maze of ladders, railings, blind corners, engine noise, and cramped compartments where hesitation can turn the advantage over instantly. So when Marines practice visit, board, search, and seizure operations, they are not rehearsing a simple climb over the side. They are rehearsing a compressed assault designed to seize control of a suspected vessel before the people aboard can organize resistance or destroy evidence. That mission sits inside the wider role of the maritime raid force of a Marine Expeditionary Unit. Marine reporting describes the maritime raid force as giving the MEU surveillance, shipborne raid, airborne raid, and visit, board, search, and seizure capability. The force includes a force reconnaissance platoon, an amphibious reconnaissance platoon, and a security element. One group specializes in assault, another in waterborne access and reconnaissance, and another in stabilizing the situation once the ship is taken. Everything starts with rehearsal. Marines do not gamble with shipboard raids because the environment is too punishing. A vessel may be rolling, accelerating, turning, or fighting heavy swell. The deck may be slick. Railings may be high. Ladders may be badly placed for a fast entry. Compartments inside may funnel the team into choke points. So before the operation begins for real, the raid force rehearses approach angles, climbing sequences, room entry order, sector responsibility, and how to move through tight maritime spaces without stacking up or crossing fields of fire. Speed at the moment of boarding comes from repetition long before the boarding starts. Then, the support ship launches the RHIB. That transition is one of the most important moments in the operation. Until then, the team is still under the shelter of a larger vessel. Once the rigid-hulled inflatable boat drops into the water, the boarding element becomes a fast, exposed interception force committed to the target. The coxswain must control speed and angle precisely. The Marines have to stay balanced, low, and ready while the boat slams through chop. The RHIB is the last controlled burst of momentum before contact. From there comes the chase. A suspect vessel rarely presents itself like a stationary target waiting to be captured. The RHIB has to close hard, match motion, and get close enough for the boarding team to move without losing control. Marines and sailors push through that phase, using the small boat as a pressure tool. The closer they get, the more the target's freedom shrinks. And because the boarding force is exposed during approach, every second matters. A poor angle can injure the team, destroy surprise, or make boarding impossible. The final entry can come from the side or from above. Helicopter infiltration adds another layer by compressing the target from multiple directions at once. A team arriving from the air while RHIBs close from below creates immediate shock aboard the vessel. Once boots hit steel, the process becomes brutally direct. Secure the deck. Establish dominance over exposed personnel.
What's he look like?
Push toward access points. Clear compartments methodically. Separate crew from potential threats. Lock down the ship before resistance can build. What looks like a risky maritime assault is really a highly drilled sequence designed to turn a moving vessel into a controlled space in minutes. That same logic continues beyond marine training and into the maritime operations of other U.S. agencies working the same sea today. That larger maritime picture is where Customs and Border Protection and the Coast Guard take over, applying many of the same interception principles in a law enforcement setting. CBP is one of the largest law enforcement organizations in the world, with more than 60,000 employees, and its Air and Marine Operations branch plays a major role in protecting the nation's maritime approaches. The context is different from a Marine raid force, but the rhythm is strikingly similar. First, locate the vessel. Then, close the distance. Then control its movement. Board it and secure it before the people aboard can escape or disappear into open water. That is why patrol boats matter so much. Crews aboard safe boats and other CBP craft do not simply drift through the water waiting for trouble to appear. They patrol aggressively, watch patterns of movement, and position themselves so that suspicious craft can be challenged quickly. In a maritime environment, speed is not just about pursuit. It is about compressing decision time for the people being intercepted. The longer a suspect boat remains free to maneuver, the more options its crew has. Once a patrol boat establishes pressure from the right angle and distance, that freedom begins to collapse. High-speed chase sequences make that process easy to understand. The pursuit is not chaos. It is exerting controlled pressure. Patrol crews hold pursuit geometry, match turns, and deny easy escape routes until the suspect vessel runs out of options. The sea may look wide open, but a disciplined pursuit can make it feel very small quickly. The same principle appears in broader air and marine operations missions securing the maritime border. Boats, aircraft, and crews work together so targets are not only found, but continuously watched and boxed in. The Marines rehearse boarding as an assault problem. CBP and the Coast Guard solve it as a pursuit and seizure problem. But both rely on the same fundamentals: early identification, aggressive closure, controlled boarding, and rapid domination of the target space. Maritime interdiction is rarely decided at the instant the first boarder steps across. It is usually decided earlier, during the chase, when disciplined crews deny the target time, distance, and options. And that same logic does not end at the shoreline. It continues on land. The boat pursuit becomes boarder pursuit, but the principle stays the same: detect, close, control, seize. That is why the final part of this story shifts from water to desert, roads, and border corridors, where interception becomes a broader surveillance and pursuit problem. In places like Yuma and Ajo, Arizona, the scale alone changes how enforcement has to work. In one documented event, about 300 migrants illegally entered near Yuma. In another, 85 migrants crossed illegally near Ajo. Those figures matter because they show that border security is not always dealing with isolated individuals moving quietly through remote ground. Sometimes it faces large groups whose size alone can stretch manpower, vehicle coverage, and response speed across wide areas at the same time. This is where persistent surveillance technology becomes indispensable. Customs and Border Protection uses the Tethered Aerostat Radar System, or TARS, to extend visibility over huge sections of border terrain. Suspended beneath helium-filled aerostats that can operate at roughly 10,000 to 12,000 feet, radar systems scan broad areas continuously and help detect low-altitude aircraft and suspicious movement over terrain that would otherwise demand far more patrol hours to cover. That altitude is important because it turns the aerostat into a long-duration observer. Instead of agents reacting after movement has already slipped through, commanders can begin shaping a response while the contact is still developing. The same principle applies underground. Border tunnels are some of the most dangerous spaces agents encounter because visibility is limited, access is narrow, and nobody wants to send a person first into an unknown tunnel. That is why CBP has used camera-equipped wireless robots in tunnels near Nogales, Arizona. The robot goes first, transmitting video back to agents and turning a blind underground risk into a searched and monitored passage. In practical terms, the machine absorbs the uncertainty so that the human team can move with better information. Then, there is the chase element on land. Vehicle pursuit training is not about driving recklessly faster than everyone else. It is about controlling distance, angles, timing, and communication, so a fleeing vehicle loses options without the situation collapsing into disorder. Ground vehicles pressure from behind. Air assets above maintain awareness. The suspect is tracked continuously, and the pursuit becomes a managed effort to force a stop rather than a simple race. A helicopter such as the AS-350 adds enormous value here. because it can keep eyes on the target even when roads curve, traffic shifts, or the driver tries to use uneven terrain as cover. Arrests are the final stage of that system, where surveillance, robotics, pursuit vehicles, and aviation all compress into direct enforcement. The people being pursued are no longer just moving targets on radar, camera, or road. They are being physically taken into custody by agents who already understand the terrain, the likely routes, and the remaining escape windows. And that is what ties the entire chase and capture story together. Marines rehearse and storm ships at sea. CBP and the Coast Guard chase, intercept, and seize vessels in open water. Border Patrol and air and marine operations use aerostats, robots, patrol vehicles, and helicopters to detect, track, and stop movement across land. Different environments demand different tools, but the American interdiction method stays remarkably consistent. Detect early, close fast, and seize control before the target can disappear. Whether on a rolling ship deck, a dark semi-submersible, a desert road, or a hidden tunnel, the pressure comes from the same logic of persistent surveillance, followed by decisive action across every domain the nation assigns to their care. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of our new content. See you next time.